Hey gamers, so this discussion video I've been meaning to make for quite a bit now. That being to mostly talk about the Xenoblade 3 art book that came out in like April 1st, which is April Fool's Day, funny enough, of this year. But I changed my mind on doing a video initially when that came out because of the fact that we didn't have all the information from the art book translated, only a lot of the key points. And so I kind of missed my chance on that, and I kind of decided, nah, I'm not gonna cover it, even though I wanted to. But since then we've actually gotten quite a bit of Xenoblade news. We've gotten, of course, Xenoblade X Definitive Edition announced, which is crazy, but also some smaller stuff. Even something today got like kind of announced as I'm recording this video on 4 a.m. on the 11th. So yeah, I want to talk about all the Xenoblade news that I missed this year. Like, I didn't really talk about much besides maybe in like a live stream briefly or something. I've talked about the Xenoblade X Definitive Edition announcement quite a bit. But yeah, we're just going to be talking about a couple things, but mostly the Xenoblade 3 art book. So yeah, this video is going to be kind of split into two parts, basically everything else, and then the Xenoblade 3 art book. So let's just get right into it, shall we? So starting things off, we got an announcement today, again, as I'm recording this video, that Nintendo has bought all of Monolith Soft. Now, you might be confused. In fact, I was confused when I saw this headline on like Reddit that Nintendo now owns Monolith Soft fully, which I thought they did. And what happened before is that I knew this already, but basically back in like 2011, I believe, Nintendo bought most, like 96% of Monolith Soft. They bought the remaining shares that like Bandai Namco and I think some other company own. I don't think it was Square Enix, or maybe it was Square Enix, I don't know. But like they bought like the remaining shares, and the only 4% that was left was for the original owners of the company. Stuff like Tetsuya Takahashi, the Xenoblade mastermind. Like he owned a share. But now Nintendo officially owns 100% of Monolith Soft. They owned 96% before, but now they own fully all of it. Which I saw some people kind of concerned, well, most of all, this doesn't really mean much. Nintendo basically owned them fully 100% already. Now it's just official. So, you can't deny now anymore. Like, I mean, you could barely deny it before, but for real now, you can't deny that Xenoblade is a Nintendo franchise, a series that has like death, suicide, mature themes, is Nintendo owned, baby, and technically Nintendo made. Anyway, I did see some people, well, first of all, thinking that they already owned a full share, and also saying that this really doesn't mean much, although there were some concerns that maybe Tetsuya Takahashi is like slowing down on Xenoblade stuff. Though I think the reports that came out said that he sold it to Nintendo, so in case if something happens to him, because he's getting up there in age, he's like 60 something, I don't remember how old exactly he is, but he's getting up there, so if something happens to him, like he passes away, hopefully not for like a really long time, but they can continue the series like without any issues, which I think, if Nintendo owned 96%, they would have been able to continue Xenoblade mostly fine, but maybe there'll be some hang-ups here and there, like small things. So Nintendo could fully continue with Xenoblade if something ever happens to Takahashi, which hopefully nothing happens for a while. But yeah, it's just cool. Probably not a big deal. Like, this probably doesn't affect games or anything. Maybe to some extent it does. Like, maybe it fully shows that Nintendo, yeah, they appreciate Xenoblade, Monolith Soft, which we already knew about that because Monolith Soft helps do things like they help support Splatoon, that series. They supported Zelda Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom. So, clearly Monolith Soft is highly valued by Nintendo. So, yeah, this just proves it far more. Anyway, next up, I should have mentioned this, but we're going in reverse chronological order of when these announcements happen. So before this thing, we got something like a week ago where we saw Monolith Soft, like their Twitter account or something, posted pictures of all the Xenoblade like scripts they had written for the whole series, and it's a lot. It's really massive. I believe this mostly contained like the actual stuff that is in the game, but I wouldn't be surprised if some of it was like cut content or planned like concept things. But from what I saw, it seems like the books were mostly of the actual contents of the game, like which had like the story stuff. Side quests had their own separate books, I believe, which again, it's a lot. It clearly shows that Monolith Soft puts a lot of time into the Xenoblade games. And yeah, that was just a neat thing I saw last week. And then before that, a couple months ago, we of course got the Xenoblade X definitive edition reveal, which is crazy. I won't talk about it much, but I'm really excited for it. Can't wait to play it on the Switch on March. It's going to be a lot of fun. But before that, like 2 weeks before that, we got the 25th anniversary Monolith Soft video, celebrating, their creations of Xenosaga, Xenoblade, some other things thrown in there, like Batten Kaitos, I believe, Project Zone or whatever the game was called was also featured. No Xenogears, but a lot of Monolith Soft stuff, like made stuff, was featured in the thing. And I finally watched the full video. I seen like snippets here and there of the video, like the end screenshot with all the main characters, like Elma, like Noah Mio, Sulk, Fiora, Rex, Pyra, like all of them, standing around in like a field, and then there was like orbs. But I finally saw the full thing, and I gotta say, it was pretty darn emotional. They used the Future Awaits theme, from Xenoblade 3 Future Redeemed. So yeah, it was a pretty good video. I wish it had like Xenogears, but overall, I mean, it was just a nice video to celebrate Monolith Soft coming this far. And, it's still crazy to me. I misspoke when I talked about this, but it's crazy to me that, 2 weeks before the Xenoblade X, like, reveal for Switch, they put out this video which had Elma, but, like, the model from Xenoblade 2, and, like, obviously Monolith Soft knew, Nintendo knew that, oh my god, like, they had a better version of Elma just waiting to be released in, like, 2 weeks, but they used the Xenoblade 2 Definitive Edition. How smug do you think those people are? Like, oh my god. But I misspoke when I talked about this in like a when the Xenoblade X Switch reveal was announced, where I said that they used the model, the updated model. I goofed or whatever, so yeah, I apologize. But yeah, overall, that video was really cool. In fact, that's what you're seeing throughout this first part, the anniversary video. So yeah, I wish Nintendo uploaded it to their official channel, that would have been neat. But they didn't. So yeah. Anyway, I think that's it for all the smaller news. If I missed something, I might post it as a comment or like a sort. I don't know. But let's get on to the meat and potatoes. Talk about the Xenoblade 3 art book, which still hasn't been fully translated yet, which kind of sucks. That's why I didn't cover it initially. But, we're going to cover what's there, and then if something more substantial comes out of it that's not fully translated yet, I'll make a follow-up video or sort or whatever. It's been long enough. Let's just cover the most important stuff, So I'm gonna cut. I'll see you guys in a flash, and you're gonna see me screen record the information. So yeah, BRB. Oh my god, I actually almost forgot. As I was going to the website where this guy like translated the key points to most of the Xenoblade 3 art book information, I saw a thing about the new recruitment for Monolith Soft, so I forgot to mention that. I think that new recruitment thing was right before the Xenoblade X reveal and right after the anniversary video. Anyway, whatever, I apologize. So yeah, I mean, not much to say. Again, this first part of the video is very basic, like, oh, I just think it's neat. Monolith Soft is recruiting more people. They say they were hard at working on the next project, like next major project, which I saw some people theorize, like, is it another Xenoblade, another Xeno thing in general, or is it something new? Honestly, I kind of hope it's Xeno. I mean, like, I am curious to see what Monolith Soft could do besides Xeno, which we have seen them do before, but nothing too recent besides like helping out in development for like, Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, Splatoon. But it would be interesting to see them do something fully original. But at the same time, I love Xenoblade so much, so I don't know, but I just think it's cool. I forgot to mention that. Anyway, for real, let's get on to the information for the art book. Okay, guys, we are back. We are in this article, xenomura.wordpress.com. So yeah, this article, I was thinking about, covering this when it came out initially, but, I was like, I'll wait until the full thing gets translated, and it still hasn't happened, so rip. But yeah, this was made on March 30th, because technically right before the art book released, because there were leaked things before it released, but this was updated like on April to the very near the end of the 30th to add some clarification on things. So yeah, this is the key points. Okay, no, it was the 31st. That was the last one. Added some details. So let's go over all the points, I'm probably not going to talk about this too much besides, oh, that's neat, When I always envisioned this video, I was like, this is going to be a long one. But you've probably seen a lot of this information already if you're a Xenoblade fan. Oh, by the way, spoilers for the rest of the Xenoblade series right now. I should have said that at the beginning of the video. Rip. But yeah, if you follow any Xenoblade stuff, then you probably know about this, but I still wanted to cover it for a video. Whatever, let's continue. First point, A is referred to as a woman in the character introduction section for Future Redeemed, which I just think it's some sort of Japanese thing, because in the localization, and I believe like every language, A is referred to as non-binary, or at least not a specific gender. So yeah, A caption credited to an unnamed Microsoft employee for the infamous radio in Future Redeemed states, extracting the relevant portion. In addition, the design for the radio uses to serve something for its motif. I think it might be referring to the logo, which is the same logo as something from Xenosaga, I think. So yeah, Takahashi had some words about contextualizing the trilogy that I missed on my initial read. This is what he had to say. Xenoblade 3 is what has continued in the Xenoblade series from 1 to 2 and then to 3. The story of Xenoblade 1, 2, and 3 is, at the end of the day, really a story about a man named Klaus who became the catalyst for the story. That was one story that had always been there, and so in the sense the end of that can be seen to be a culmination. However, or how do I say this? During the creation of games, I'm personally already thinking about what comes next, which is true. We've heard about how Xenoblade 3 was like thought about when Xenoblade 2 was being worked on, Xenoblade 2 was being worked on when Xenoblade X came out. So yeah, okay, it's more of a passing point, not a culmination. When you phrase it as a culmination, it gives an impression of giving it your all, etc. But in that sense, it's slightly different because I personally already move on to the next step, looking at it from a different vantage point, considering the know-how that Microsoft has gained, the growth of each individual person, including how it's the games being created and how we worked hard on it. In that sense, I suppose it's a culmination. After the quote above, he goes on to say the original idea was for there to be an entire town on each of the Pharaonises, but that was changed out of consideration for time, budget, and manpower, which we saw in the Xenoblade 3 original art book, like when it came out, like around the time of like the game's release. Like we saw concept art of like, yeah, full towns for Pharaonises. It would have been massive, but there's multiple things, manpower to do this thing, the weaker hardware, like there's multiple contributions, but I think overall we still got a good product. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Again, we knew a couple of this stuff already, even before this art book came out, but this has kind of clarified some things, talked about Klaus, always been there, like I honestly do believe that, Takahashi, like he has a lot of things planned in his mind. Maybe things will change, but overall, yeah, he has things in mind, obviously. So anyway, he thanks his staff for working on the game remotely, implying at least some of the work for Xenoblade 3 was done from home during the pandemic, which makes sense because games take a couple years to make, and Xenoblade 3 came out in 2022, which, yeah, 2 years before that, and even a year before that, the beginning of like 2021, it was, still remote stuff. Anyway, regarding the Black Fog, here's Takahashi's quote. Looking at the survey, the first thing that can be answered. I believe it's regarding the Black Fog. Basically, it's a sign that the worlds of 1 and 2 are approaching each other. Those signs are appearing in each other world. The opposite world, for example, in Xenoblade Definitive Edition, the Fog King appeared in Sulk's side. Looking at it from a different perspective, a similar phenomenon was occurring on Rex's side, which is very interesting. Just that this wasn't portrayed, which, you know, I have seen some people, and I honestly do think this is going to happen. It's probably going to work a little bit differently, but I think for Xenoblade 2's 10th anniversary, they're going to do like a definitive edition, which is coming up in two years. Well, it's like the end of 2024, but in like 2 years and a month, it will be the anniversary for Xenoblade 2, and I think they could do a definitive edition, which means maybe we could see Rex's perspective of the Fog King thing going on, you know, because the Fog King was like, it would look like a enemy from Xenoblade 2, but like obviously fog related. I forgot what enemy exactly. So, you know, we could bring in a Xenoblade 1 exclusive enemy and put it in Xenoblade 2's like a new post-game story thing. But I just think it would work a little bit differently because we assume, well, we know the Switch 2 is going to be backwards compatible to some extent. Now, how would that work exactly? Like, will there be patches or whatever? I don't know. But I could see them doing like a $10 upgrade for Xenoblade 2 Definitive Edition. It comes with a new story or something. But, you know, I'm just throwing out ideas. So, yeah, something was portrayed in the Xenoblade 2's world. I believe that monster was called the Inferno Goldo. As the worlds approach each other, a Goldo that is in the land of Morthia from 2 is being portrayed to the opposite world. That's the kind of phenomenon occurring. The Fog King, the Black Fog monsters, that's all about. To put it simply, the two worlds have attracted together partially, and the effect of the phenomenon in which you see the internalization of particles as a black fog, and when that is highlighted, annihilation occurs. Quite a few of my staff might not know about this either, laughs. And by the way, the woman on the ID card that the crypto drops from an order-wearing woman is not Galea. So that was also a popular theory, which I didn't really believe. It did look like Galea, the thing, the ID, which I now remember the enemy it was. It's the enemy you fight, in the land of Morthia, like right before the World of Tree thing. Like where you're like kind of underground, not underground, but like, you know, in the city, you know, you go into this building thing. Yeah, I remember now. But yeah, that was a theory that, oh, that lady or the person, that's Galea, you know. But it's clear that was just reusing a model, because that was like the one time we saw a picture of Galea was like her ID thing, so it was just reusing a texture, you know. I mean, Xenoblade is really cool about noticing these details, but at the same time, it can be just a simple game limitation or simple reuse of assets, you know. Also, it didn't really just make much sense, because how would Galea, like how it doesn't work the same way as Klaus, you know, where half his body is split in Xenoblade 2. Why wasn't, if that was Galea, why was not half of the monsters thing you know, gone when we saw the other half of Galea in Xenoblade 1? Anyway, whatever. Regarding Atlantis Machina, Takahashi responds, so if the question is whether or not Lance is a Machina, yes, he is one, which is very obvious. If you don't know that, you're very stupid. There's a couple of these questions where I'm like, that's clearly the case, but man, look, I understand Xenoblade 3 especially, they don't give a lot of answers, like concrete answers about things, but there's so many things you could just infer. 99% like, yeah, he's a Machina. Yeah, Rex and you know, Pyra, Mithra, Nia, they're all married because we saw the end photo with the kids, you know. But people think we have to see confirmation fully that Rex says he is married to these 3 women. We find out in the game, Nia, I don't know, just for example, Nia, even though she's from Xenoblade 2, Nia is like, oh, Lance, you are a machina. And Lance is like, what? What the heck is a machina? We don't need the verbal confirmation all the time. Now, I think Xenoblade 3 kind of has some issues where they assume like a lot of things, especially really, really important things, are left to interpretation, where you can very much infer, but it's not 100% confirmed. I think Xenoblade 3 does have that problem, but I think things like this, like, is Lance a machina? Like, that's so obvious. Like, really, why you have to ask? Anyway, Takahashi says about the survey, regarding most questions that were written in the survey, almost all of them had proper answers. However, I'm just not answering them now since I don't think it's necessary at this point. So for those sorts of things, well, Microsoft is fortunate enough to continue creating things in the future, then I think we'll be able to answer it at a certain point. For example, I understand there are many requests to see what happens after the ending. However, we would... if we were to do that, we would have to make further beyond from Xenoblade 3. So I understand that sentiment, but please hold on for a bit. We can look forward to it, and that would be appreciated. So yeah, regarding the admin of Origin, regarding the world of Ionia, so rather the way Origin works, there was a proper reason for it. In actuality, there's this and that reason. And that's why this world is constructed as such. That kind of thing. Yeah. Now that I can't say it yet, now it is not the timing for that. So for now, it's fine to think of it as basically a virtual world. That wouldn't be wrong. Put simply, the administrator of the world could do anything, as in the main story of Xenoblade 3. That was Z or Z, whatever. That's the story. Yes. Oh boy. Sorry, I'm like talking really fast because again, I'm sure many of you guys have heard this stuff already, but I just want to cover it in case you haven't. For the villains of Xenoblade 3, Takahashi says skipping over some parts. I wanted to change a bit of how the villains were portrayed. For example, in Xenoblade 1 and 2, the villains had their own pride or their own principles. It could be a philosophy or even faith, but the villains had their own sense of justice. But for Xenoblade 3, I had a bit of, what if I brought the enemies closer to reality? In terms of what is reality? Let's say, for example, those in positions of power. Saying people in positions of power are villains is, well, a bit of a dangerous way to put it, but let's just say, as an example, in real life society, there are the system. They are the system, as Z says. They can decide on the system and they can run it. Even for those people in positions of power and such, I'm sure they have a life story, social ties and such, but what we can see at the surface, what we can feel as their roots, most of that is, how should I say this, a desire for control, money, fame, and maybe very rarely lust. That's where it tends to be rooted in, and occasionally some unsavory people show themselves. What if those people were the villains? So the villains this time around are the Mobius, and for them, I wanted to make them villains you couldn't sympathize with by exaggerating the unsavoriness and patheticness that real-life humans have. Towards the end of the story, I believe there's a scene where Z says it's because it amuses me, but that line, it could be it's because 3-star restaurants taste delectable, or it's because I love to make money. The line can be whatever. We place the Mobius in that position as a representation of the unsavory aspect of reality. So first of all, I do get Takahashi's point here, and I do think he does have a point in that it's nice to see a different type of villain in Xenoblade 3, but at the same time, a lot of people didn't really care about the Mobius, myself included. They're fine, but we like the other villains because they are sympathetic. They are actually human. I know Takahashi says that these types of people are more realistic, and I think he's kind of wrong. They are realistic in that there are people that are genuinely like these bad people. Obviously, major CEOs, you see this where companies are laying off thousands of people or whatever, but there's also a real person behind that, and they have their own feelings. Even he himself mentions that they have family and stuff, so I get where he's coming from, but I do think that he's a little bit wrong in my opinion. But obviously, I don't think the Mobius are bad concept, or he's wrong fully, like, he's the creator, he can do whatever he wants, but that's just my opinion. So commenting on N sword, what's inside the sword of the N that N holds, that would be logos. I mean, it's Malus, but Malus for the time being is dead or has disappeared. As to why Malus is there, I'm sorry about that, but I can't answer that at the moment. But what N is holding there, that is Malus himself. So this was a big thing that people talked about, like, wait, what? Malus is there? Especially because I don't quite understand how this makes sense. Also with the Pyra and Mithra, like gloves in Matthew's, Matthew's gloves or whatever. Like I just don't know how it works. Like, how did they materialize into these weapons for this one person that exists at this one time and not anywhere else? Did they exist as other types of weapons? Because this is going to be brought up later, where people can turn into weapons in Xenoblade 3 because of how the world works. So, like, were they Pyro and Myth, or were they weapons in some other, in like other Matthew's descendants or ancestors or something? I don't know, but yeah, I don't know how that works, but it is interesting to think about. Yeah, and then this is the thing right after. Regarding Matthew's gauntlets, next first, Matthew's gauntlets, the fist of the end, pneumas inside there, and therefore both Pyra and Mithra, you think of it as both of their wills being presented within the gauntlet, which again, I don't know how that quite makes sense. Like, we do see it, but like, how does that work? Like, I don't know. Regarding Lucky 7 and Lucky 7 was no akin to wield. This is actually, this is not mentioned within the story, but Fiora's inside of it, which I don't know how to feel about the thing. I like the idea that Lucky 7 had the consciousness of, like, a lot of different party members from Xenoblade 1 and 2. Like, we see this with, like, because, like, in the game itself, probably because of, like, slightly mistranslated, but, like, either Sulk or Riku say something about how it houses a lot of people's consciousness, the Lucky 7, when he's talking to, like, Matthew, or I don't know, something is going on in the dialogue towards the end of Future Redeemed. And I don't really know how to feel about the idea of it just being Fiora. Like, I think that's kind of weird, but like not to say it doesn't make sense. Again, we know it's explained, characters can turn into weapons, but I just think it would have been a better thing to have it be, multiple characters reside in the weapon, the multiple memories, consciousness, all that stuff. But, what do I know? Whatever. In regards to the above statement about Lucky 7, nobody that was present for the interview seemed to be aware of this information. This statement caused a bit of a stir with all of them, simply asking the response, Fiora. Elaborating on it farther, he states, while some people like Sulk and Rex appear in this world in the flesh, some people appear as an object, and that is an expression or reflection of their traits or thoughts. Things like, how can I change this world? I think this is the best way to do so. Think of it as something like that. So yeah, that's explains it there. Kojima, like the Metal Gear guy, asked Takahashi, Noah threw it, Lucky 7 into the sword at the end of the game. Was that okay? And Takahashi responds as follows. This conversation, how do I put it, deals with the fundamental aspect of Origin, and I only could think of it probably as a virtual world. Think of it like a server in a virtual world. It actually isn't the case, but this will be fine for demonstration purposes, laughs, and within that there's source code that's running, and as a way of expressing that, it can take the form of a sword, but also not. And Alvis was responsible for the general management of Origin system. As the administrator, Alvis was quietly watching for a while after Origin started up. As this was happening, Z, a partial administrator and collective conscious-like entity, starts doing things on its own. The story of Future Redeemed starts with Alvis deems this unacceptable. Continuing, he states many things happen after that, but Alvis, note who's he's talking about specifically is not named, but I assume Alvis, but more specifically A, ends up siding with Sulk and Co. So there was no longer general admin, and so Z replaced that position. That's why Z can mess with the source code, making the human lifespan 10 years and disturbing it because it's amusing and things like that. Although the whole 10-year lifespan thing was a change made to the code prior to Xenoblade Redeemed. Basically, he can do a lot of things. He can be brazen about it when thinking about what can be done to break the source code. This is where you use external powers. I believe this was stated in the story, but a kind of power that exists outside the flow will be necessary. In regards to what that power would be, going to power of the will of young people living in the world, and regardless of Numa or Logos, is the same kind of entity as Alvis, and thus an external factor from Z's point of view. Therefore, combining these powers and retaking the world for ourselves, that would be the broad explanation of Origin relating things. That is, oh my god, I'm mindful, but basically we already knew that already. I also should say I'm probably not going to be editing much of this video because I want this video to get out in a matter of time. I want to work on this video and also the finally the Autism podcast. I've been thinking about making another episode of that series, but I want to finally do that later today after I go to sleep, because tomorrow, as I'm recording this, is the Game Awards. So yeah. Anyway, since there is a great interest in it, I will above also translate what follows the quote above. You had to collect origin charts at the end of the main story, right? There's nothing concurrently decided in terms of who is what chart, but you never know. Maybe those charts could be Ryan, and broad strokes, if you think about it that way, it shouldn't be wrong. So yeah, that's cool. Ryan is a shard. So, you can't have a rainbow without Ryan. One of those is maybe the first shard you get is Ryan. I don't know. He adds by saying, to put it bluntly, Alvis, who was the one person that was the core processor as well as the processor of the Monado, Sulk, and similarly the processor, partner of the same processor, Rex. These three sustain the world, and the main characters outside of those are leading their strength to the characters. In Ionis, there's the structure. So when Noah throws Lucky 7 into the ocean at the end, he was like this. He was pondering like this before throwing it. That was like saying thanks to the sword, thanks for everything, and that kind of thing. Something like the battle's over, a new world is starting. Thank you, and thus it's liberated. Return to the world. It was return to origin. Jesus Christ, there's so much dialogue. Speaking about the people of the city, he has this to say after that. It's time to say farewell. It's split between the Kevis and people of Bionis, and the Agnians and the people of Ares, and another corner is the people of the city, and those three make up the structure. But I also saw quite a number of comments to the survey asking about what happened to the people in the city. So to answer that, that's something that I believe you can also understand from the information given in the story. The people of the city, their life that doesn't exist in the original two worlds, and yet they still exist despite the origin being something like a memory machine that collected data from both of the worlds. This is, in fact, it suggested that the two worlds will become one, and that these people will eventually be born in that future as a structure. So yes, Ganaga, Monica, Gornica, I forgot how you say her name. They will be born in the new world. So this is like a lot of these things that Takahashi is saying, like they are obvious. Again, I think Xenoblade 3 kind of has a problem where it assumes too many things are, oh yeah, that's so clear. But it is true that a lot of the things are clear. Like this was made, I believe, Gornica, however you say her name, I forgot. But she says something about being reborn into the new world, And, we clearly see the worlds merging at the end of the credits of Xenoblade 3. Like, we see this. So, yeah, clearly those people will be reborn to some extent. Will they have the same memories? Probably not. Same personality traits, or maybe, they will look slightly different. Like, I think the main thing that will carry over is, like, their souls, maybe their general appearance or personality. But, like, I think they will live on, but it will obviously be a little bit different. So, yeah. He goes on to say that Noah and his friends are fighting for a world in which they, the city people, can be properly born, but I will leave this part as a paraphrase for now. Takahashi says that through the lens of... I don't know who that is. Noah as a character can be understood to be an optimist that rejects nihilism, which is like a depressing thing. Okay. God, there's so much stuff going on. We're only halfway through. Jesus. On the subject of Riku, he says Riku, he's sly. He's doing all these things while completely understanding everything that's going on. When he says in the city, man, there's something tiny and cute over there, he's saying that on purpose to bring attention to it. Saying, hey, look here, there's a really tiny person. Look, it's different for you guys. I get emotional response out of them. I suppose he's a bit two-faced, isn't he? He's master upon his Melia. So Melia has entrusted him with what is basically Fiora, and of course he also one of Riku's sons, yes. Which was theorized, it was either theorized he was one of Riku's sons, or Riki's sons, I'm sorry. One of Riki's sons, or the son of Kido. But yeah, it's one of Ricky's sons. Ricky has like tons of kids, which makes sense. But, to see the information about how hecking, Riku was like lying about everything. Like, it's weird because he's so much, is like, sometimes, especially with the baby thing, like, he does know a lot, obviously, but sometimes he feels genuine. So, like, man, he's a great actor or something. So anyway, speaking about Riku's explanation about the Lucky 7 and its grandeurs, or it's specific about the Lion 7 legendary swordsman's pod, over the course of 7 years, forged with 7 types of steel. Takahashi says that those were convenient lies that Riku made up, which is interesting. On the Nopod, he has to say this: in this world, the world of Iona's Nopod are existential entities residing outside of the flow, so they don't have a lifespan, they live forever. Which brings into consideration is oh god, what was her name? It's been a little bit since I played Xenoblade 3. Manana. When, like, how does she work? Because I feel like she's not lying a lot of the time, if at all. You know, I saw some people saying, oh, Manana and like all the Nop on our line, but you know, it's possible they just don't know the full truth. Maybe they know they live forever, but they don't know why exactly. Maybe, you know, I saw some people like, oh, Manana was also lying about the baby thing too because she was surprised. But I honestly think that was genuine. I just think maybe Napon reproduce differently than humans, or maybe they reproduce similarly, but you know, Manada is really young compared to obviously Riku, who's like thousands of years old. So yeah, that's just my thing. I don't think all Napon are liars, but you know, clearly something is going on there, which I kind of wish we explored in Xenoblade 3. Speaking on the subject, Kojima, again, I don't think it's the same Kojima, right? But it's weird. Kojima notes that some survey responses asked about why Sulk and Rex have lived for such a long time. To watch Takahashi respond, Sulk and Rex haven't lived long, have they? Or just only recreates of the worlds that used to exist, and if you think of them as being emulated, I should only be able to live what their lifespan is. Sulk and Rex, they defeated Alpha some years after arriving to Ionos, and they shifted to sustaining the world after that. But how should I say this? Their rank is the same as Alpha's and the rest of the Trinity processor, and this is also true for Melia, the Fiora, who possessed Melia, not Melia, Myth. Oh God, Maynef season Monado. In other words, if the admin handles it, and it can be done if the source code of the world is rated as a recreation of reality, then is, for example, the lifespan was set as 80 years old. When they say they can give their lifespans to Glimmer and Nicole, they can if they rewrite the code, but you normally shouldn't do that because you don't know what kind of glitches will occur. Response A says this is against the rules, and that's sort of the idea here. About golden motes, he has this to say: golden motes, that's a sensor node in the context of death. Yeah, this boson, and it turns into a form that is difficult, no, impossible for Z and the Mobius to use, disappearing to the outside of their system without being used by the Mobius, which is why it's like considered high praise. Which I don't know why they would do that. Besides, you know, giving people, I guess it makes sense, right? I mean, give them a chance to fight harder. And I guess, you know, if you lose like some people here and there permanently, at least you're gaining a lot of people back in the system because they're trying to achieve that goal, but then they die and die and die. I guess that's the logic. Anyway, Takahashi says the hooded boy at the start of the chapter 6 is a part of N that resides deep within Noah's psyche, which is interesting because the part of N that resides within Noah's psyche is like the same voice actor as the baby Gorniga or whatever, the you know, the grandfather of Matthew in Future Redeemed. So yeah, Takahashi's final comment to wrap the interview up. Xenoblade was released in 2010, and some of our customers have been with us throughout those 14 years, continue to follow us, and that makes me deeply emotional. The only thing I have to say to that is thank you. We would like to continue to meet the expectations of those who have supported us in that way with up to Xenoblade 3 finish. I'm sure there's plenty of customers who feel that this isn't enough. They want you to know this or that, and that this book isn't enough to cover that. We have heard these voices from our customers loud and clear. Gratefully, I suppose, or in the future during the creative process, we would like to respond to those voices. So please look forward to that. That will be it. Yes. So, as some have pointed out, the phrase here doesn't necessarily mean to have to mean virtual world anymore. Literal translation of this phrase would mean imaginary, imagined world. I translate it as virtual world due to the context, but because this phrase is very commonly used to refer to computer-generated world, is still noteworthy to point out, and honestly didn't cross my mind on the first read that he could have meant something more general. To be completely honest, I misread the word will mine intention as conscious conscience on my first read. After much deliberation, I decided that leaving it as collective conscience like will be fine for now, as I'm not wrong in getting across the meaning, but something like collective will like entity being, or even an entity that is represents the collective will would have been more accurate. I don't have to downplay the fact that the way it's written in Japanese kind of looks like collective unconscious, but I don't want to play it up either. Okay, so that's it actually. So I thought this was longer than it was. I mean, it's already been like a lot of minutes. So, I mean, not much to say. I mean, I mostly just read off what the article says. Shout outs to, again, this guy for putting up the article. So yeah, I'm happy I finally covered this in a video, very late, most of the year over with, and I finally now cover it, but I finally got it covered it along with the other Xenoblade news, So I'm gonna cut back to being on camera, so I'll see you guys in a bit for us to wrap up the video. Okay guys, that's gonna be it for the video, for real. Again, I'm happy I finally covered all this information for you guys, I talked about all the Xenoblade news I missed, which is crazy. I actually did almost miss the one thing, which is about the recruitment stuff from Takahashi about a new title, which we don't know for sure what it is. Also, I just want to say I apologize for how most of this video looked because of the screen recording. I couldn't do it the way I usually do, where it's vertical, the video, because of the fact that the first part in this ending part is horizontal, so the vertical thing you just see black bars on the side, so I apologize. I could have added background gameplay or whatever, but I wanted you guys to see the information of the article, so I don't know, let me know what you think of that. But anyway, hopefully you enjoyed this video. I worked really hard on it. I also should have mentioned this at the beginning, that there might be timestamps in the description. Probably not, but I don't know, maybe I'll change my mind and do it. But yeah, I'm happy I did this. So if you enjoyed the video, be sure to like, subscribe, play some Xenoblade. I'll catch you all next time for more. Peace, bye everyone. I'll see you all tomorrow for the podcast episode. For real, no cap on God.